New Raptors head coach Darko Rajakovic has finally spoken to the media after being hired by the team just a few days ago, and some of his comments have a lot of fans excited, as I've heard some people call him the anti-Nick Nurse. So we'll discuss what he had to say, including some of his comments on Fred VanVleet, as both he and Bobby Webster addressed Fred and Gary Trent Jr.'s free agency. So got some interesting insights there, as well as a longtime Raptors assistant coach being relieved of his duties. So lots of stuff to break down. Without further ado, let's jump into the first topic of discussion. The first thing we're taking a look at is Darko Rajakovic addressing the media. Now, I've been excited. I've been waiting to hear about this presser, as Darko was a little bit of an unknown when he was hired by the Toronto Raptors. When he came in, he was an assistant for the Memphis Grizzlies. We knew the resume, but who he was as a coach, we got more information once he was hired about his philosophy and everything that came out in the past few days. But we really wanted to hear what he had to say. And we heard a lot about his offensive side of the things, but one thing that wasn't really addressed is how he'd be on the defensive end. So the first thing we'll take a look at is what he had to say about the Toronto Raptors defense. It's basically, he came out and said that one of the strengths of this team is the length that we have. The ability to do so many things, from switching, from different coverages on the ball and off the ball. For me, everything defensively starts with protecting the paint. If you protect the paint, after that, we're going to take away the corner threes. And this is the one comment that I've seen a lot of people excited about, right? We know the Toronto Raptors have a lot of talented athletes on this squad. And yes, we have done a decent job with what we've had, not having a center for a couple years, at protecting the paint. But the fact that he's focalizing on protecting the paint, and then the one area where the Toronto Raptors were just absolutely abysmal in recent seasons, and I'd still regard Nick Nurse as a good defensive head coach. I like the creativity he used, especially when he had the right tools at play, available in Kawhi Leonard, Marc Gasol, Kyle Lowry, all those guys, right? Nick Nurse could definitely coach that type of team to a strong defense, but given what we had in most recent seasons and the number of corner threes that we'd be giving up, it just wasn't working out. So the fact that Darko Rajakovic is making an emphasis on protecting the paint, which I assume also means rebounding, which is an area the Raptors have struggled in recent years, but won't blame all of that on the coaching, but also covering corner threes, that is something that definitely had me pretty excited hearing him talk about everything going on about this team. But I'll go on and say that we can get into X's and O's, and I can draw you guys some schemes when we get a chance. I would love to do that, but I'm really looking forward to talking with our guys as well and seeing their comfort level with all these things. And again, I don't want to bag on Nick Nurse here, because I feel like the fan base has been just trashing the guy immensely for a coach that won us a championship and did some amazing things with this organization, but definitely in his past couple seasons had a bad reputation for certain things. Leaving open corner threes was one thing. The second thing is just running defensive schemes that players weren't comfortable with. We were running the Marc Gasol, Serge Ibaka, Kawhi Leonard, Danny Green, championship core style of defense with a team that just wasn't really built to do that. No centers, young guys without a lot of experience in the NBA. So the fact that Rajakovic is saying, hey, we want to see what the comfort level with all of our players are with running these weird schemes that I might integrate. That's what you want to see, right? All decisions I'm going to be making, I'm going to be consulting the players and people in the organization with my coaching staff. So there won't be any just mad scientist stuff thrown out there with, no regard for the players, no regard for the team. Darko Rajakovic is a coach that, wants to have people, their input said, right? Their input felt. And if the players on the court feel like they can't execute something, they should have their opinion said about it, because that is something that hurt the Toronto Raptors in recent years. And he's a guy that a big parts of, there's a lot of quotes. I don't have screenshots for them all, but a big thing that he's focusing on with this Raptors coaching role is building relationships with players, right? Figuring out how he can serve them. That was his direct quote, right? To get the most out of them, serve them as their head coach, whether it be the players, people in the organization, all that sort of stuff. So he's coming at it with the right approach, which I really like to see from a new incumbent coach to this organization. And apparently he wasn't the favorite coming in either, as Bobby Webster came out and said that we were really open-minded with the approach, who we wanted to look at every step of the way, and he really exceeded expectations and impressed us all. So it's nice that the Raptors really had an open mind and selected the candidate they thought was best. So Rajakovic is coming in with some interesting takes, all that sort of stuff. But we also had him address different things in the organization, including the roster construction. And this is something that, there was a lot of praise and stuff for what Rajakovic had said. the anti-Nick Nurse comments I saw a couple times made me chuckle a little bit. But one thing I've seen him catch some flack for was his comments about this, saying that I really like the roster, the way it's built. Said getting to know more and more of the players each day. I'm really getting excited to get to work with these guys. So obviously, what else is he going to say when he's asked about the construction of the roster, when he's asked about the team? He's an incumbent coach, right? He hasn't really met any of the guys directly that well. He's not going to say, hey, the 6'9" vision didn't work, or the team that we were sort of running just won't work for me. Lots of changes coming this offseason. There's no way he can say that, but some people, some Raptors fans were a little bit frustrated at the fact that he complimented how the team was constructed, because that also has been an issue for this team over the past couple seasons, especially being top heavy, not having players to play all those positions filled out. So I get it why Raptors fans are a little bit cheesed that he said this, but I don't know what else they expected him to say. But he also had a little talk. There was also some communication regarding Fred VanVleet and his free agency, and that leads us basically into Bobby Webster and what Darko Rajakovic had to say regarding Fred's free agency. I believe I have Bobby Webster's quote up here now, basically saying he addressed Fred VanVleet and Gary Trent Jr., saying that obviously we are on good terms with Fred VanVleet. We spoke to him yesterday, and I think that was just kind of expected. Regarding the video we made yesterday about him declining his player option. Now, we discussed why it's likely he's going to be leaving, but Bobby Webster sort of addressed that pretty quick. And for a guy that, is as well regarded within the organization as Fred VanVleet has been in recent years, found that interesting. I was pretty quick to sort of, we're on good terms with Fred VanVleet, but really nothing else. So that adds fuel to the fire, at least in my opinion, in terms of Fred VanVleet likely not coming back to the team. But Rajakovic also talked about Fred, saying that he wants it felt like he was talking about a point guard in general, but it was in the context of Fred VanVleet, how Fred VanVleet is a all-star. He's done it on all levels. He's proven he can win, and he described the importance of having a point guard out there that's an extension of the coach, how valuable it is, and how he'd like to see Fred VanVleet back. So, we'll see what happens with Fred VanVleet. Again, I don't think he'll be returning to the team next season, but both Rajakovic and Webster had comments on him. But Webster also addressed Gary Trent Jr.'s free agency, as you saw it in the second half of this quote, that having those conversations with him and just, you can opt in, you can get a lot of things done, right? Webster says he has a lot of things at his disposal, as do we. So we're able to have a lot of those conversations, whether it's long-term or short-term. Similar to Fred, which is, we're in communication with him. So basically, the Toronto Raptors, they're out here discussing their free agents talks. They're not letting that much slip, but, a lot more was said, it felt like, about Gary Trent Jr., about how they could potentially go the route of a shorter term contract or something along those lines, just like they did a couple seasons ago with Gary Trent Jr.'s extension. Gary didn't have the most dominant season this year in terms of expectations, right? Came out only 17 points per game, shooting 37% from the three-point line, extremely streaky, and even in that playing game, barely got any minutes under Nick Nurse. So maybe Gary's looking for a shorter term deal to up his value and then look for something big down the line. Again, we're going to need shooters coming into this team next season. So Gary's definitely a player that in theory fits perfectly with this roster. But let me know what you guys think about all of that, those whole situations there. But next thing we're taking a look at is a longtime Raptors assistant being relieved of his duties. Now, this is something that's fortunate for probably the Canadian basketball fans out there, longtime Raptors fans, as the big cat Jamal McGlure been relieved of his coaching duties. It's basically news came out today that Darko Rajakovic will have a clean slate when it comes to assistant coaches. In addition to Rico Hines moving on likely to Philly, longtime Raptors assistant and community ambassador Jamal McGlure will no longer have his coaching duties, though he remains with the club in a role to be determined. So it's nice that Jamal McGlure will be back with the team, will be back with the organization, but it's unfortunate, I guess, the big cat seen him at the back of the bench. I hope he's still on the bench with his new role, because he's always getting animated on the sidelines. Sure, you might be sacking a tech a season with having Jamal McGlure on the sidelines, but I don't know. I'd hate to see the big cat gone. He's the guy trenched in Raptors culture. But also Rico Hines out of the picture, and while he was hyped up last season, didn't see a lot of development, at least this most previous year. So I'm not that shook up about Rico Hines leaving the team, but I guess it does suck, especially with his relationship with Pascal Siakam. But final thing I want to address in this video, Canadian star winning a championship. And shout out to Jamal Murray. The Denver Nuggets winning a chip yesterday. I know they weren't the underdogs. I know they were favorited and they absolutely dominated the playoffs this entire season. But the story of Jamal Murray tearing his ACL, right? Taking really 2 years to really get back into form. Never being an all-star. Kind of getting 2 years of, the beginning of his prime robbed of him. And then immediately coming back and winning a championship with not a super team by any means. Not a squad that's star player after star player. A team that's kind of homegrown. With Jokic, Murray there, Michael Porter Jr. trading for Aaron Gordon. Just a cool story for the Denver Nuggets. So, shout out Jamal Murray, Canadian legend. Want to give props there. But, folks, you guys are the best for making this far. Subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already. It means the world to me, and lots of fun stuff coming over the next few weeks. So, you guys are the best. I'm signing out. Cheers.